You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 46, Selling Books in More Places with Dan Wood of Draft2Digital. Sell, baby, sell.
If you would like to support this program, or any of Kevin Tomlinson's work, then we invite you to become a reader. Find fiction you will love at kevintomlinson.com/books.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger, and today I'm talking to somebody that, the service that this guy works for, I kind of think of it as a game changer, because I've been doing this, I've been doing work, through Amazon for the past several years, and I've worked with, Barnes & Noble, back when they created Pubit, which now I think it's, something else entirely. I can never find it. I always have to go searching for it in Google. I can never just go to it because I don't ever remember the name of it. But I've used Smashwords. I've used several platforms to get my books out there. But when Draft2Digital came on the scene, I heard about it. I heard the chatter. I heard everyone basically start kind of, talking about it, raving about it a little. In some cases, some people, have their hang-ups, but it's not a perfect service, but it's as close to perfect as any aggregate service I've used so far. So, if you're not familiar with it, the way this works is it aggregates all these different ebook providers in one place in one really, to me, really cool, simple dashboard. And so you can upload your book one time, and it does all the conversion for you. It adds some things to the book if you want it to, like if you don't want to mess with formatting, you can basically just do this as a Word document. It takes care of all of it for you if that's what you want. I like to format my books, but if doing so on their service kind of precludes me from a couple of services I like to use. So I've started using them to just convert from a Word document, which is it takes, less time for me. So that's kind of cool. But basically what this does is it puts it out on, Barnes & Noble, makes it available for the Nook, makes it available for Kobo, for Apple's iBook store, for several places, and gives you a pretty nice international distribution. So it's pretty sweet. And I love the sales dashboard. I can pop in, see how many books are selling or how many have sold. I can get a report that tells me what books have sold per channel, what titles are selling, what channels are outselling others, so I can I can tweak things and aim a little better. I like it. It's really great. I'm sold. So Draft2Digital. Now I've talked about that before, I think, and we've definitely talked about it on the other show I host or co-host, which is the Self-Publishing Answers podcast. And if you're not listening in on that, tune in. There's some great things happening there. You're going to really enjoy it. But today we're talking to Dan Wood, and we'll do the whole introduction in just a moment, but you're going to enjoy this interview, especially if you're an author. But even if you're not an author, let's say you're not an author. You're just you're an entrepreneur, or you want to be an entrepreneur. You want an unconventional income. I speak about writing to entrepreneur groups all the time. Because if you're going to be in business, this is just a Word Slinger belief, okay? But if you're going to be in any kind of business now, I think you need a book. I don't care what kind of business it is. I think, a lot of my clients, a lot of the client work I do is for like software companies, right? I try to convince them that they should have books about their products, about the industry, about things that are relevant to their market, and then use those as lead generation material for filling their funnel, for getting names in the mailing list. So that's, I'm kind of an evangelist for that. And I think books are just a fantastic tool for any business, small or large. So, of course, I would think that as an author. But, as an author, services like Draft2Digital are fantastic. If you're not an author, you can still utilize this service to generate more leads, and the way you do that is through like calls to action in the back of the book. Ask people to come check things out or whatever. Since there's no real overhead, there's no overhead at all. They make money from your book sales. That's plain and simple. And you can put a book up for free if you want. You don't get Amazon with this service, but you can go direct to Amazon easily enough. But it does put you in a wealth of other distribution channels. So there you go. If you have questions about how to use a book to bulk up your business, let me know. Give me a call at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. Or visit me at wordslingerpodcast.com. You can leave me voicemail from that site. You can leave me email from that site. I'm happy to answer any questions. But I got lots of advice on how to use a book to build a business. And you'd be surprised at how versatile they can be. So, all right. That's enough of that pitch. And, of course, go buy my books, which you can buy right there on that site. But let's get to the real meat of this. Let's start talking to Dan Wood, because he has a lot of advice for authors, and he's got a lot of insight on this service. And I think you're going to dig this whole discussion of Draft2Digital and everything else in the author. So, see you after the interview for a wrap-up. Have fun. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. And this time I'm actually sitting with somebody I'm kind of impressed by what this guy's helping to put together out there. It's a tool that I recently started using, and a lot of indie authors are using to help us get out on various platforms, get away from the Amazon-only atmosphere and breathe a little. So I'm talking to Dan Wood, who is the Director of Author Relations at Draft2Digital. What's going on, Dan? Thanks for being on the show, man.
Not much. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little. I've been using Draft2Digital for a while now, and it's probably the best dashboard I've encountered. It's the easiest system I've encountered for doing anything book related. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that platform?
Thank you. Well, we opened our beta at the end of 2012. Yeah. So we have been doing this for about 2.5 years now. We have grown to about 59,000 books that we help distribute, and we work with about 16,000 different authors. What we help people do is convert their manuscript from a Word document or a couple of other different text type documents into all the digital formats you need. Or if you've already got your own EPUB, you can use us to distribute that to all of our different sales channels. And like you said, we just help people go everywhere besides Amazon.
And it seems like you guys are growing into new channels all the time. You recently added Scribd, right?
Yes, we've added Scribd and Oyster within the last year. Tolino, which is a German alliance of stores.
Yeah. I'm not seeing any sales in any of those yet, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah, it's definitely with Tolino, we have seen steady growth, especially if people have German translations.
Yeah.
That's kind of the market they're aimed at, but they were interested in the English language content we had because there's a lot of Germans that speak English as a second language.
Yeah, and a lot of expats too, right? I mean, there's
yes, definitely.
I know quite a few. I wonder if I should tell them about that, because I don't know if I think a lot of them have been stymied by being able to buy books on Amazon, or not being able to in some cases. So, what's the sort of overall mission of Draft2Digital?
We say it's self-publishing with support.
Yeah.
When you go to we work with authors across the spectrum. Rather, we have authors that were traditionally published and are leaving traditional publishing.
Yeah.
We have authors that have always been indies and are doing some hybrid deals, and then we have people who are just brand new to indie. And so, what people find is the number one resource that constrains them is time, and so we just help people. Rather than having to go to 8 or 9 different websites, make any change to price, you can change it at one website.
Yeah.
Instead of having to upload all of your tax information over and over and, work with their legal departments to get your publisher name exactly the way you want, you can just come to us and we take care of all that for you.
It really is it's stupid easy actually, and I love the reports too. Although it took me a little while to figure out how to find the reports I was looking for. I don't know if I'm just half brain dead or what.
Now, it's definitely something we hear from a lot of people.
Yeah.
We try to take care of that by having the best customer support in the industry.
You do too, yeah.
We get back to emails generally within a business day, and we have a phone number people can call, 1-800 number, anytime, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 Central, if they have questions.
Yeah. I have yet to, and there haven't been that many times I've had to contact you guys, but I mean, I've yet to contact you and not have everything resolved like within the day. So that's been fantastic. I can tell
That's
you
good to hear.
that's
Yeah.
not the case with a lot of, and so I have problems sometimes with Barnes and Noble, and it's easier to go through you guys than to deal with Barnes and Noble. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. The other thing that we try to do is we try to promote our authors. Our business model, instead of having like any upfront cost, you can publish a book for free with us. We take a cut while you have your book listed with us. It's about 10% of the retail list price.
Yeah.
That can vary a little bit based on what country it's in and currency conversion, but it works out to generally the author gets about 60% of the retail list price after we take our cut and the sales channel takes their cut. And so that encourages us to try to sell as many books as possible. We're not spending our money trying to get new authors. We're trying to get authors and sell books.
Yeah. And I think
So, we do like some merchandising. We use some of our aggregate data to tell our sales channels, hey, this book is doing really great at Barnes & Noble. Maybe we should feature it here.
yeah.
Stuff like that.
See, and I think that's probably the biggest difference for someone like me, especially because I feel like you're on my side, and a lot of times I don't feel like these other platforms are on my side. They're out for them, and you guys seem to have kind of a vested interest in actually making book sales, which is just as important to us. So. Thanks for that.
Definitely. You're very welcome. We're excited. We get to work with a lot of fantastic authors. We had 64 books hit the New York Times bestseller list in 2014,
Wow.
which just blew our minds because that pretty much works out to a book nearly every week.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so what's the track? How do I get my books on that track?
It's you can't do it just with Amazon alone. So you
Yeah.
have to go wide, and just building up to where you can get, it's about 500 sales at each channel on a release day. Pre-orders are huge for that. We encourage people to do pre-orders. We do no manuscript pre-orders at Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Tolino.
Yeah.
And so you can set up a book, most places up to 90 days in advance, and have that link out there and ready for your users, even if you're not finished with the book, so that they can, if they finish your series, they can go ahead and click to purchase the next one. They've already got the link and everything, and then they don't get charged until your release day.
Yeah, one of the things I really dug was the you can upload a Word document, which was kind of a new experience for me actually, because I was always formatting and uploading like the EPUB. But you guys will add in like the sort of the upsells and the about the author and that sort of stuff, and it actually turns out a little better than what I've been producing. So I've started using you guys to generate my EPUBs.
We do. For any books that we distribute, if you have us do the conversion right now, we will include vendor-specific links. If you want us to, like, we'll generate an also buy page at the end of the book, and it will have the version of the EPUB we send to Apple will have links to the books, the rest of the series for Apple links. The one we send to Barnes & Noble will have Barnes & Noble links.
Yeah,
and so that's pretty powerful. We're working on being able to do that for user-provided EPUBs as well.
So is right now the only thing that I've noticed is not part of your service is Amazon. Is there a reason for that?
They don't like working with aggregators.
Yeah.
They've got a vested interest and have pursued this policy of
Exclusivity.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's no, we try to talk to them every chance we get, but they haven't showed much interest. At one point we did work through the KDP portal, and we had some books. listed through us on Amazon, but we grew to a size that there was no way to manage it.
Yeah. Was it sort
And,
of a ad hoc kind of,
exactly.
one at a time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and which is basically what we have to do, and it is kind of a pain. I like the ease of, uploading my book one time and choosing my keywords one time, and it all goes where I need it to go. And I also like being able to turn off a channel. I haven't had any reason to do that, but I like the fact that it's there.
Yeah, that was a feature that no one else had, like that we chose to go opt in from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We would let people just use us for one channel or, use us for everyone. We also, as we add new channels, we don't opt you in automatically. We put in a pop-up that just asks you, would you like to opt in with all your books,
Yeah.
or would you like to, decide on a case-by-case basis?
Yes, and what was very cool was when you guys added Scribd and some of the others. You announced it, and then the second I logged in, it asked me if I wanted to go ahead and add that. And that made, because I was literally logging in with this sort of dread feeling that I was going to have to go through every single book and opt it in. But you guys made that easy too. So
Yeah, we definitely think about the author experience with anything we do.
Yeah.
We have 2 or 3 authors within the company. One of the founders is an author, who's done indie publishing. He was picked up by one of the Amazon publishing houses for a series. And so not only do we have a lot of good internal resources, but we do talk with our authors constantly and try to participate at places like K-Boards to hear what authors are saying.
Yeah, and you guys are unique as far as I can tell. I mean, one of the things you do that is interesting is you offer to do a print version of the book through CreateSpace.
Yes.
I haven't seen anyone else do that. So do you get a lot of people doing that? Because it made me nervous. I haven't tried that through you guys yet.
We don't really have it automated. It is a very manual process on our end, but we have found there's a lot of authors that want that help.
Yeah.
We have about 800 books right now that we distribute to CreateSpace. It's not everyone, but we do encourage you, if you don't have one, to think about it. You're not necessarily going to make a ton of money on a physical copy. However, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, people see the print cost and they see the digital cost. And so the digital cost looks like a great deal.
Yeah.
And then for conventions and book signings and stuff, and just it's nice to be able to hold a physical book in your hands that has your name on it and your picture on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a feeling.
Yeah. I have, for all my, everything I have that's over 50,000 words, I go ahead and make a print version. And I'm surprised, actually, at the number of people who they insist on that. There's still a large group of people who don't want to read anything digitally. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to get numbers, but most people I've seen estimate the digital book market for the U.S., which is exponentially ahead of the rest of the world, at 30 to 40% max. So the rest of that are people reading print copies. We definitely think it's inevitable that digital will overtake print the same way the MP3s. People still sell CDs. People still like CDs. People still like records, but the price and the convenience are just going to win out. And for us, we fully believe mobile phones are probably going to be the main device in the future on across the world. I was talking to Apple recently, and they have they pointed me towards a Wall Street Journal article that came out yesterday, which would be August 13th for anyone listening later. But it was talking about how more and more people are reading on their phones. For a lot of other parts of the world, people are skipping dedicated e-reader devices either because they can't afford them or they don't have internet access for them. Whereas with the mobile phone, they've got all the access and everything. And mobile phone screens are getting bigger and easier to read on.
Yeah. I was interviewing someone about translation a while back, and they were talking about how and that was Yannick Nelson for everyone listening at episode 15. But we were discussing how the mobile phone market is opening up brand new markets all around the globe. Some countries, like countries in Africa, for example, they never got into a computer age. They skipped it and went straight to the mobile age.
Yes.
And it's very convenient for them because they don't take a lot of power. They can be charged conveniently from things like windmills or whatever. And so they're picking things up, and there's a fascination with Western culture at times. So that's like a whole new market, and it's all mobile driven. So I think it's smart to target that.
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I've been doing a couple of presentations at like BEA and RWA on international markets.
Yeah.
English is spoken by so many people. I think there's 375 million native English speakers. There's another 375 million who speak it as a second language. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's another huge chunk bigger than that speak it as a third or beyond language. And so as an indie author, you have world rights. So you can, you want to distribute as many places as possible. Companies like Kobo get you to like 190 different countries and territories. We sold in 2014 about 100 in 195 different countries.
Yeah,
which is just awesome. Amazon gets you into, I think they've got 12 world stores. Apple and Google both have about 51 territories that they go to.
Yeah.
And then, like I mentioned, Kobo just goes so many different places because of some of their partnerships. Yeah.
So given that sort of expanding world market, are translations, are they more important now, or is it fine to just stick with English?
We are seeing a lot of big authors like Liliana Hart. I've heard her speak about it. I've seen several different romance authors who have done German translations. Courtney Milan has some German translations.
Yeah.
I've also heard really, really good things about Brazilian Portuguese. Apparently that's a pretty strong market.
That's what I hear too, yeah.
I've seen a couple of our authors sell their Italian rights, like especially for romance and erotica, where they've had Italian publishers approach them about handling an Italian translation.
Yeah.
So, as an indie author, you've got a lot of options, and one of them is, if there's a market that you don't know about, you might be able to sell your rights and, work with a partner, kind of like you do with ACX if you do the narration with the split royalties.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't actually thought about that. Going and finding somebody to do a royalty split for the translation distribution in another country. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You guys should add that as a feature. Make a marketplace.
It is expensive. Amazon is experimenting with it. With I think it's called Amazon Crossings. A couple of different I was talking with Mark from Kobo, and they've experimented with it. It is a big market, and as the digital adoption grows and audiobooks grow, I think you'll see more and more people testing those waters.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see it, and I know there are services emerging now like BabbleCube that you can do royalty splits, but at a certain point, if you split the royalty enough times, you're really paying someone else to take your book at that point.
Yeah.
So you got to be cautious.
And it's a lot of legal paperwork. It is a lot of work, but in a lot of cases, it's worth looking into. Like there can be some money in that you probably wouldn't have sold books there otherwise.
Yeah. So you guys, right now, it seems like a lot of what you do has a lot of hands-on from your, from your team and your staff. A lot of manual stuff. I mean, is it just because some of that's too difficult to automate, or is it a personal touch kind of idea?
I think you'd be amazed by how much we actually have automated. Our founders and I'd say 3/4 of our team came out of developer or IT backgrounds.
Okay.
And so we have a ton of stuff that's automated. We have relatively few customer support people, honestly, but we try to go above and beyond. Like we don't have, we don't just send you canned emails. Really, we've got responses. The responses that need to be the same and consistent. We've got some wording for that, but each and every email we take a look at and we make sure we're answering every question. Because I've seen some of the cryptic emails people get from Amazon and from Apple.
Yeah.
We want to make sure people know exactly what's going on with their book.
Yeah. Yes, and I think it's such a scary thing because as an author, I mean, I'm in this process, right? When I get and like you say, cryptic emails from Amazon, and sometimes they're kind of alarming. They're warnings of things that I had no idea was violating some obscure policy buried deep in the terms of service. So it's very comforting to me to have someone who will actually not only respond to me directly, but respond to me in terms of language I'm going to understand, or actually interact with me. So that's very important.
We do a lot of automated scans of content, especially for Apple, where they've got a very robust content guidelines to let people know, hey, this has a problem because you mentioned another competitor, or Apple doesn't allow 3D covers, to let people know about that ahead of time and to make it as easy of a process for authors to make changes to meet the guidelines for the different places they're trying to go.
Yeah. Well, and you guys have a vested interest in the success of the books too, so that helps.
Yeah, we definitely want to get books up as soon as possible.
So what have been some of the bigger the challenges of what you guys have been doing? Like, what's the biggest challenge, I guess?
I'm sure every one of us would answer that differently. But for me, since I get a lot of the escalated accounting questions, it's really hard to. Every system is different. Like every way that our different sales channels reports to us is different.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, the charts. Like it takes a little bit of work to kind of get in and understand how to use them.
Yeah.
A lot of that's because, and like even trying to figure out how to show things in a great manner is very difficult because it's trying to marry up a lot of different ways of displaying information and make them where they're comparable. Like Apple, for instance, pays on a fiscal calendar.
Yeah. And
so we do get like daily sales estimates from them, but then at the end of the month where they give us the accounting numbers, which are really the only numbers that matter, that's not always going to match up with the sales estimates we've been showing people on our site.
Right.
And trying to make sure people understand those sales estimates are really for knowing if your current promotions are working and just feeling good, like saying, oh yeah, I sold 10 books. It's not necessarily going to marry up to the accounting numbers. Over time it does, but when you look at it, Apple has 4-week months and they have 5-week months, and some months it seems like you're paid lower than you expected, and then that one month you're paid much bigger than you were expecting. So
yeah, my primary business right now is copywriting, and every client has a different accounting system and a different fiscal calendar, and that makes getting paid regularly kind of challenging at times. So I can only imagine what it's like on a scale of 16,000 authors.
Definitely. And since we pay monthly, which no one else of aggregators does that. Everyone else on quarterly or longer.
Yeah.
Traditional publishers are much longer than that.
Right.
And so we're trying to make sure we're doing that right every month. We've never failed yet. Like we've always made everything we're required, but it's challenging sometimes.
Yeah, and it has to pool for a while too, because everyone pays on different rates, right? Or different.
We wait till we get paid by everyone, and we work some of that language in to make sure they pay us by a certain date so that we can pay all of our authors by a certain date. But sometimes they pay us way in advance, and so some months we can pay right at the first of the month, and other times it's a week or two into the month. So
yeah, and so okay, you guys have a unique perspective on something, and I think a lot of my listeners would love to hear it. I know I'd love to hear it, but what are authors in general doing wrong most often that might be hurting their sales?
You know, I wish I'd had more of a chance to hear a couple more of your episodes. I went back and listened to some because I'm sure a lot of these answers are going to be exactly the same.
I'm sure, but that's fine.
And this all depends on where you're at in your career. But I will say for the majority of authors I talk to, stick with one genre for a while. Just don't genre hop early in your career. You can do it later, but stick with one genre and write in series until you've got a decent sized readership. And then I would encourage you to start experimenting if you want to experiment. Or, there are people that have 14 to 20 books in a single series and are just keep writing them because their readers love them.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. I think traditional publishing has looked down on long series and writing series in general, and readers love it. I mean, it's the same with the way we consume TV. People like TV shows with 7, 8 seasons. At least in the U.S. market, people fall in love with characters. I think people follow series and characters much more than they follow an author's name.
Yeah.
Unless you're someone like Stephen King, and even then, I think just the way that we're consuming things is changing. I encourage people to know their genre, and I don't mean that in such a way that I'm not telling them to trace or chase trends or to try to write to market. But if you're writing in romance, like contemporary romance, know the tropes that you cannot violate. Like you have to have a happily ever after, or you're going to get a lot of negative reviews. Know what is normal for book covers and don't deviate a lot from that. I encourage 99% of authors to pay someone to do their book cover. I know a lot of people think they do a good enough job, and over as I'm trying to merchandise things, I'm seeing books get passed on because of the cover. And so make sure your cover looks as good as anything put out by a traditional publisher.
And I know things like that are tough for, especially with someone just starting out that has, all they have are the hopes and dreams they've pinned to this book, but they don't have the cash to do a nice cover or something.
I feel like you can get a really decent cover made somewhere around the $100 mark. I feel like where new people, it helps them most, and it's the most fiscally challenging, is the editing. 'Cause really editing can cost you, hundreds, if not thousands.
I've spent thousands on on books before and still had typos.
And I'm a firm believer that the majority of people cannot self-edit. However, look into writers groups and like exchanging editing, with someone that you trust, and your brain fills in what you meant to say. And so when you're reading over it, and if you can't afford to do that, one trick that I've heard works for a lot of authors is to use software that will just read aloud your manuscript. Hearing it will break that. Like, you'll hear something and it'll sound really weird to you. And so that's a good way to catch either typos, grammatical errors, or maybe you end up using the same sentence or same word over and over. Maybe you have an awkwardly constructed sentence, and sometimes it's much easier to hear that than it is to read it.
I think it may be Sean Platt who reads his stuff. Basically, he reads his stuff and records it and then plays it back almost like a podcast, and that's sort of the way he catches a lot of their editing mistakes or whatever early on.
I think that's a fantastic method.
It's not one I've really gotten into yet. I should, I guess. I've got the means to do it. There's no reason I can't. It's just so time consuming, and I think I'd rather just hand it off to people.
Oh, I understand. And a good editor can work wonders. There's different types of editing. You at the very least want copy editing, but developmental editing can really improve you as a writer.
That's and I think for a lot of authors I know personally, copy editing isn't really their issue. It's because a lot of them are in some ways, they overdo it on making sure everything's correct. But what they really need help with is loosening things up and getting someone to come in and, you know, apply Strunken White or something to and knock out some words and you know, make it crisp. Yeah. So
I think Stephen King and on writing, a lot of his advice boiled down to like write your book and then cut a huge chunk of it. You know, cut it down to just the bare essentials.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I tell people to, you know, when you're writing, you have one job, and that's to write. Don't do the editor's job. When you're done, you can put on the editor hat and do all the editing if that's what you want to do. But I think the thing that slows writers down, especially at first, is trying to get it perfect that first time out, and it's never going to really work.
Never. You know, get it good enough. You know, get to a point where you're comfortable with it, but then release it to the wild and realize you'll never get it perfect, and just move on to the next book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you guys do you have a lot of issues with quality when it comes to the books? Do you field complaints at all?
What we end up doing is we do content review, which is you know, just looking for any taboo subjects that certain vendors don't want, and then quality review. We do get occasional returns, but it's pretty low number because of the amount of quality review we do. Because between us and then companies like Apple proactively give us information about, you know, we're rejecting this because of this reason. You know, we do see a lot of people who aren't really authors. They're just trying to cash in on ebooks. I don't know what you would exactly call those, but you know, where they're doing basic content marketing books to try to push information towards websites. And so we have to catch that because people don't really want that. You know, they don't want like a 3-page book that is just go buy my website course.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we're constantly having to deal with that. We have to do quite a bit of scanning for copyrighted material and trying to deal with people trying to post books that they don't own. That eats up a tremendous amount of our time and trying to catch those.
That's boggling to me. I can't even understand it.
Yeah.
Like I would call someone a liar if they had told me that was even a thing. But people are actually stealing someone else's book and putting their name on it and publishing it.
Yeah, people
Seems
do it.
Unbelievable.
We fight it. I know all of the sales channels fight it. It's something that's always going to be a problem. You know, we've seen crazy things where people have even gone in and rewritten words. You know, like we use things to compare the language to see, you know, is this like word for word the same or, you know, close? Like, is it matching up way more than it should be? But we've seen people, you know, I don't know if they're paying people in third world countries to paraphrase or what, but go in and actually like paraphrase a book and just change details like the name of a character, colors of hair. And so that keeps our job interesting.
Yeah, I bet. I can imagine a sort of CSI style group of you guys, you know, somebody whipping off a pair of sunglasses, you know.
We're keeping track of IP addresses and trying to make sure, you know, if there's someone we know has done something scammy in the past.
Okay, yeah.
It's crazy the level to which we have to go to catch some of these people.
Yeah, that's weird though. Well, it's not weird. I mean, I get it, especially if something is profitable and, you know, there's always going to be somebody out there trying to figure out a way to scam the system and make that, you know, make some bucks off of it. So I guess it's not all that weird. So do you guys have, are there like, what are some restrictions? What cannot go on Draft2Digital?
We no longer do public domain is a big thing for us because a lot of people don't realize that public domain varies by country.
Okay.
And so things that are in the public domain in the United States may not be in the UK or may not be in Canada and vice versa.
Right.
Since we send everything with world rights, we do have a way of restricting rights to certain territories, but trying to logistically keep track of what's in the public domain where and set things accordingly, it just would never pay off.
Yeah.
So we stopped doing public domain. The really big taboo stuff, any content with like incest, rape,
Yeah.
the things that like pornography, stuff like that, we can't send to different places. Apple has their rules against 3D covers. They don't like mentions of any competitors in their books, and so we filter that out and kind of send it back to the authors to fix if it's something that we can't take care of on our end.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else. Those are the main categories.
Yeah, that seems like that covers most of the greater offenses, I think.
Exactly. It's, as KDP authors, basically what Amazon allows, we allow.
Yeah.
There's a handful of exceptions to that where like Apple doesn't allow stepbrother romance right now. And so.
Prudes. So, yeah, and I know there was a big thing, and this didn't have anything to do with content per se. It was just a gluttony of content. I think it was Scribd that just put sort of a moratorium on romance.
They did, yeah. They cut, and the good part of it is that they didn't target indie authors. This was across the board, so.
Yeah.
Harlequin books, Big Five books got cut, but that's been kind of an ongoing saga of a lot of romance was removed from their catalog, and now they have fairly small romance catalog. They haven't exactly given clear instructions as far as how they chose books, and so we keep pestering them about that. And
Yeah.
it seems to have something to do along the lines of the cost per page. Similar to the way Kindle Unlimited is working now as a subscription service.
Yeah. What do you think of that?
I think it's a much, much better system than KU 1.0. I mean, I think it was a horrible idea to begin with, the way in which they paid. Anyone could have predicted that you would get a bunch of really short scamming material into the service.
Yeah.
And that people would naturally start breaking up books into chunks, unnaturally, because the payout, was good for that.
Yeah, and it became very annoying. I was constantly seeing that stuff.
Exactly. As far as the way they've implemented it, it's hard to say until we start seeing payout numbers. I think tomorrow is like going to be the first payout number we see. Mm-hmm. At what the rumors are, I would say it's probably not terribly fair towards authors, especially like people writing children's books.
Yeah.
But you do get a lot of visibility through the program, and so for some authors, they're going to choose that. But I would encourage anyone looking at a long-term career as an author. Amazon gives you about 2 weeks notice before they make a huge change like that, and that's no way to build a career for stability. In the end, you're going to want to diversify, and companies like Google and Apple have such a advantage going to the future with having their phones and how widespread they are, and being able to do one-click purchases within an app.
Right.
We've seen Amazon try to get into the phone market, and they just have not succeeded at that yet.
No. I saw what they offered. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it had like nifty, cool features that had no practical purpose whatsoever.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I actually appreciate the way you guys have structured all this, because I've submitted things directly to Apple. And you guys have Voodoo or something, because I would get 0 sales from Apple from a book, and then eventually I'd pull it. I kind of clung to Amazon for a while doing the exclusivity thing, because it's on the surface, at first at least, it seemed like that was a pretty good deal. But you're right, that's no way to run a business. And once I started treating my author career as a business, I knew I had to branch out. But somehow you guys get me better traction with Apple in particular. But it seems like you've got more negotiating power with like Barnes and Noble and that sort of thing than guys like me would have.
We have access to their merchandisers, which is huge. We make sure we've got all the metadata right, and are constantly checking that. Which, you were talking about what authors are doing wrong earlier.
Yeah.
What indie publishers do wrong, which is a different hat, but the same person. A lot of them just aren't familiar with the other store layouts.
Yeah.
I find a lot of authors were early adopters of digital books, and because of that, went with Amazon because they were the main, really the only player there for a couple of years.
Right.
So they don't know like how the iBook store is laid out. I'm frequently working with authors on, you really should probably go with this categorization versus that categorization to find your target readers.
Yeah.
Take some time to learn how each store is laid out. Ask questions. With us, you can always talk to us. Each of the different stores has customer support. So, kind of ask questions about how do you get featured here? What do you guys offer? You always see a ton of people talking about the Amazon algorithms and kind of discussing them in as much detail as you can guess. But all the other retailers are worth looking at, and we see a lot more authors where Amazon is about 50% of their revenue, and then the rest of the stores make up the rest. And especially with some of the romance authors and mystery authors, they're starting to move up where another store is actually selling more than Amazon for them.
Right.
And that just took time. Like if you're in KU and you're exclusive now, you can't just dip a toe in. You can't just put one book out there and see how it does.
Right.
You have to give us at least the whole series.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of readers that just won't buy a single book from an author. They'll wait till the author has a couple of books out there.
I've noticed that
and
too, yeah.
Give it a couple of months. I would say 6 months minimum. Like it's got to be a plan, and you've got to follow up with, I'm going to make sure my website has links to all the different places I'm going to. I'm going to mention the other places on social media. I'm not going to do a Kindle gift card every time I do a giveaway for something.
Yeah.
Think about the other retailers, mention them a lot, and they notice. When I nominate books for promotion at Apple, they go look at your website, they go look at your social media, and see there's your whole webpage to say go buy my book on Amazon, and that might get you disqualified for. They'll be like, well, we'll just pass on this one.
Yeah, actually, I listened to your interview on Self-Publishing Podcast, and that was one of my big takeaways. I immediately went and reshuffled some things and made sure Apple's logo was appearing, and they're the buy now buttons and stuff, and in priority.
Yeah.
So maybe that helped. I didn't even think about that.
It does. Like if you're constantly just pushing one retailer, then it's no surprise that one retailer is 90% of your business or more.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's no good for anybody really when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
So
we've had the most support with marketing from Apple. Like they've been pro indie for a while now. Barnes and Noble has really started working with us on a lot of stuff, and while they're diminishing their market share in the traditional markets, for us, they've been continually growing as they kind of embrace that indie revolution. And some of their marketing spots are tremendously powerful. We've had a couple of books featured on like the Nook Free Fridays, and we have a couple of upcoming Nook Daily deals. And those can really reach a whole new reader base. It's very different from the readers you find at Apple or Barnes & Noble or the subscription services.
Yeah. So have you guys had any heavy hitters emerge from your service that maybe you were instrumental in boosting them up?
I would like to think we have a lot of people that have worked with us and have hit Wall Street Journal, New York Times multiple times. we've been a part of that. As far as if we've elevated anyone to like the next level of their career, there's several mid-listers that we've probably kind of given that extra boost to get onto the USA Today or New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah.
But a lot of the authors have definitely done it on their own. There's authors we've worked with quite a bit. I'm really excited about some of the promotions we've done with Sean Platt and Johnny B. Truant and David Wright to get some of their stuff out there in front of the Apple market.
Yeah.
And that's really, really paying off. And I think this time next year they're going to have so many more readers than they did, when they were just at Amazon. So
Yeah, and those guys, man.
Yeah.
I know they tell everybody don't do what we do, but sheesh, you guys have it figured out. So,
And they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
They know the things that they're doing that are artistic, but probably aren't going to be commercially successful, and they know the things they're doing that they're tailoring to be commercial success.
exactly. Yeah.
And for them, it's just building that reader base, and it's a very long term. Here's where we want to be eventually. It's not looking at I want to maximize my paycheck next month. And
Right. Yeah. So what's coming up? I mean, what's the future of Draft2Digital?
We've been focusing this year on international markets, and so we added Tolino. We've got another sales channel that we are currently beta testing, making sure they can kind of keep up with the speed that we've gotten authors used to with our service. That will help authors reach another international market. We're looking into libraries as a big area where we think services like Overdrive are just getting to a point where might actually be able to move indie books there.
Yeah.
It's been something where you could get to Overdrive and list your books, but it wasn't very likely they were going to sell.
Yeah.
And didn't know very many people that were making any library sales. So it's an area that we're going to really look at. And then we're going to focus. We haven't decided exactly what the major focus for next year is going to be, but I think a lot of it's going to focus on discoverability.
Yeah.
And just helping. We're going to round out this fall. We're going to round out the solution we have for those also buy links, so that we can handle user-provided EPUBs, so that people can bring us, exactly how they want the book laid out, and then at the very end we can, handle everything to make sure all the links at the end are vendor specific.
Yeah.
We're looking into a couple other things like that. We hear a lot of authors spend a lot of time on it,
Yeah.
or their assistants spend a lot of time on it, and so our service exists to save authors time, and so we thought that was a very natural thing for us to really come up with a great solution for.
It's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. And I know I'm watching you guys, because you guys are constantly evolving, which is something I really dig, and it's just so helpful and convenient that you were unavoidable. I tried one or two of your competitors in the past and just gave up. I mean, it just wasn't worth it. The amount of work I had to go through, to so that they could make money off my book, it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah, we think there's definitely not having a style guide that you have to follow, and having
Yes.
people that will help you. If our system doesn't get your book right the first time, having people that will go ahead and look at it and tell you, in most cases, we just fix the problems and let you know what it was we had to do differently.
Yeah.
In some cases, we might need their feedback, but that saves authors a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all appreciate that. So, well, thanks so much for being on the show, man. This has been fantastic. I'm really excited to see what you guys are coming up with and the direction of this company. I hope to, I don't know, I kind of tune in every day hoping I'm going to just discover some new fantastic thing you offer. So from me and the rest of the indie authors out there, I thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, and I really enjoyed being on your show.
Thanks, man. For everyone else tuning in, you'll be able to see these links in the show notes, but if you go to draft2digital.com, You can check out the service if you're an indie author. If you're not an indie author and you're thinking about it, they could probably even help out with that. Who knows? Just keep asking around. So thanks so much, Dan, and we're going to round off, and everyone else stick around, and I'll do my wrap up at the end of the show. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey everybody, and that was the interview with Dan Wood from Draft2Digital, and that was a fantastic interview, actually, because there was so much. If you listen closely, there's a ton of information in there geared toward helping an indie author reach success. And it's not there's nothing formulaic about this stuff. I mean, on the whole, it's basically going to come down to you spending a whole lot of time, possibly a whole lot of money, getting yourself out there, building that audience. The basics, the sort of ground foundation rules of building an author business are build an audience first. And that translates a lot of times to building an email list, which, by the way, we can help with. I'll get to that in a second. And, then, writing a lot of books, writing a volume of books. I mean, I think that a lot of success in the indie publishing world comes down to numbers. That's a firm belief of mine. I think and those numbers translate to your audience, how many people are on your mailing list, how many readers do you have, and they translate to the number of books that you have. Because you could have a huge audience, but if you only have one book, you're going to peter out quickly. If you have a small audience, but lots and lots of books, you can leverage that and keep going for quite a while. So it really is about going wide instead of going deep. And I think that some of that translates out of this interview with Dan Wood. Dan was a great conversation to have, and I'm going to be working with him on a couple of things. We got having an Apple promo coming up that he's helped with, and I'm really stupidly grateful for that. Very appreciative of that. And, he's pretty open to helping indie authors out. So if you've got something published on the Draft2Digital platform, you might want to start, communicating and sending some emails. You might be able to get some assistance there. So, and if you haven't tried it out, definitely do. Draft2Digital.com. It'll be in the show notes, but it's Draft2Digital.com. And you can set yourself up literally within 10 minutes, maybe less, you can actually have your book set up and out to distribution channels with a few clicks of a button. I mean, it's ridiculously simple. When it comes to doing that on any other platform, it can take hours, and it's exhausting, But right now what I do is I publish to KDP first. That's Kindle Direct Publishing. That's Amazon's platform. I publish to that first. And because in doing that, I basically get all the information together that I need to set things up on Draft2Digital. And then once I've got that in place, I hit publish, and the book is live. It has to be accepted by each of the storefronts, but that usually happens within 24 hours, and it's a lot simpler. I mean, going to each of those in turn and setting everything up was just a pain. And I've gotten some payments since starting this, and some channels are slower to pay than others. But I will say this: the experience I'm having that I like the most, I had a kind of a headache experience when dealing directly with Apple, and not everyone has this. Maybe it's just me, but I was able to do this so easily through Draft2Digital that I'm basically from now on, this is the only way I'll publish on Apple. It's smoother. It works much easier, simpler, and I've seen a lot more traction because of it. When I put my stuff on Apple directly, I don't see book sales. I can put those exact same books on Apple through Draft2Digital, tons of book sales. So don't know the magic formula there, but I'm going to go with the winner. Anyway, now I mentioned this a moment ago, but. So you are aware, possibly, that my good friend Nick Thacker and I are in business together. We do some co-authoring, but we also have some other services out there, mostly geared towards indie authors. And this one is no exception. We just launched, and it's kind of in a beta phase. So this, if you're interested in this is your chance to get in and try it out. I've been using it for several weeks now. You're saying, Kevin, what the heck is it? We started author.email, or you can go to authoremail.com. And I think I mentioned this in an episode a while back, but or it may have been on the Self-Publishing Answers podcast. But if you're an author and you're looking to create a mailing list and you're dissatisfied with MailChimp and you don't want to spend the money on Aweber or any of these other services, you can jump into author.email or authoremail.com. They're both the same website. And this is it's an email management service that's been set up by authors and expressly for authors. It's inexpensive. We have tiered packages. It's very similar to MailChimp's tiered packages. But man, setting up like autoresponders and dropping in templates and things like that, it just could not be easier. I mean, I used MailChimp for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. I used Aweber for a while. Through clients, I've used services like Constant Contact and others. This is just hands down. I mean, here's the upfront honest truth. There are some high-end features on services like Constant Contact that are going to be missing from this service. And further truth, in all the years that I've used those services with clients, none of my clients have ever used those. One client uses the text to list feature on Constant Contact. One friend, really. She's not even a client. She's just someone I consult with every now and then. She uses it to get people to sign up for her list using text messaging. I think that's a cool feature. We don't have that feature on author.email yet, but I think it's pretty cool. But how useful is it? So little features like that are missing. However, setting up an automated, an autoresponder for greeting people who join your list, done. That's there. Setting up additional autoresponders to go out. If you create a whole new list, you can create a whole new set of autoresponders. Setting up drip campaigns. Setting up scheduling email to go out in advance or whatever. I mean, it's so easy. Everything's so easy. And one of the things I truly love are the reports, because frankly, I'm just not a data guy. I never have been. And so I need something that makes that stupid simple, and that's what this does. It was kind of one of the requirements I had when we were pulling this all together. And you get these gorgeous, beautiful, easy to read, colorful charts, show you exactly how many people are on your list, how many opens you're getting, what your click-through rate is, what the unsubscribe rate is, if anyone's reporting you for spam, and by the way, all that stuff can be downloaded as separate spreadsheets, CSV files that you can, do what you want with. If you want to follow up with people who unsubscribed, CAN spam laws may prevent some of this, but I think it may be permissible to contact these people one last time and say, hey, sorry, you're off the list, but would you be willing to talk to me? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's not allowed. You know what gets me, though? I will say this. This is my complaint. This is my soapbox. The people who unsubscribe by reporting me as spam. Now, that irritates me, but what are you going to do? So it's a fantastic tool. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, I'm getting really excited about it. I say we're in kind of a beta phase. I mean, we're already rolling this out to some people. We've already got some paying customers, and they were really enthusiastic. So you may dig this. Go check it out. You can go to author.email. That's the whole domain. Isn't that cool? And if you can't remember that, authoremail.com is also pointing directly at it. We figured we better get the near miss. So go check that out. Sign up. You can watch a video that kind of walks you through it. I wrote a quick start that you'll get. I think you get it in the first email. That walks you through exactly how to set up your first list, how to set up your first autoresponder, how to check your reports, all that stuff. Now, here's the real kicker. you can set this up and you can use it for free. And I think it's up to 1,000 subscribers, possibly more. But you can set it up and try it out, and you can export that list and import it to your current email system with no cost. So if you just want to try it out, build the list, and then move it off there if you're unhappy, no problem. Go do it. But I can almost promise you're going to enjoy the experience of this much more than anything else you've used. The control you get over it is much higher than anything else I've ever played around with. I think you're going to dig it. So go check that out, author.email. Now, if you have questions for me for any of the guests that have been on the show, past, present, or future, why don't you send them my way? You can call me at 281-809-WORD, and that's 281-809-9673. Visit me online at wordslingerpodcast.com, where you can leave me a voicemail or email. It doesn't matter. You can contact me any way you like. I hope you dug this episode, this interview with Dan Wood from Draft2Digital, and stick around because we got some interesting stuff coming up next week. Let me check the list. So next week, tune in and you can listen to me interview Brian Meeks, who is an indie author, a friend of mine. We met at the Colonist Summit put on by the guys from Sterling and Sohn last April. And he writes some cool stuff. He wrote a sort of, I don't know what you call this, like a satire kind of thing called Underwood Scotch and Rye, which I've been reading and enjoying. So you'll want to tune into that. He's kind of a card. Now, after that, I'm talking to Seth Livingston, who created Seth's Pop-Up Creator, which if you use Squarespace, you're going to want to tune into this one. And, he has also some insight for, finding developers and using developers if you're an author, that sort of thing. And coders, programmers and that sort of thing. So you'll want to tune into that. That's an interesting interview, actually. But then, coming up, actually, I've got more interviews between now and this one. But in mid-September, haven't landed on a firm date yet, but I have already talked to the wonderful Andy Weir, author of The Martian. And that interview was fantastic. We talked about the film, we talked about the book, we talked about Firefly and Aquaman. So tune in. You're going to definitely want to stick around for that. So keep tuning in each week and have fun out there. Be safe out there. I will talk to you soon. Take care.
Word Slinger.